Um, so, who wants to read the seven realities? Mamaji, a long time. Mamaji, can you read? Okay. I think he's away. Is he?
I'm opening my book.
Oh, sure. Okay, you're okay.
Okay. Okay. Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai. The seven realities: existence, love, sacrifice, renunciation, knowledge, control, and surrender. I give no importance to creed, dogma, caste, or the performance of religious ceremonies and rites, but to the understanding of the following seven realities. Number one, the only real existence is that of one and only God, who is the self in every finite self. The only real love is the love for this infinity God, which arouses an intense longing to see, know, and become one with its truth, God. The only real sacrifice is that in which, in pursuance of this love, all things, body, mind, position, welfare, and even life itself are sacrificed. The only real renunciation is that which abandons, in the midst of worldly duties, all selfish thoughts and desires. The only real knowledge is the knowledge that God is the inner dweller in good people and in so-called bad, in saint and in so-called sinner. This knowledge requires you to help all equally as circumstances demand, without expectation of reward. When compelled to take part in a dispute, to act without the slightest trace of enmity or hatred, to try to make others happy with brotherly or sisterly feeling for each one, and to harm no one in thought, word, or deed, not even those who harm you. The only real control is the discipline of the senses to abstain from indulgence in low desires, which alone ensures absolute purity of character. The only real surrender is that in which the poise is undisturbed by any adverse circumstance, and the individual, amidst every kind of hardship, is resigned with perfect calm to the will of God. Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai.
Man, Baba.
One thought about this, out of the seven realities, only the first reality, am I heard?
Yeah,
Huh.
go ahead.
The only first reality, the real existence, is the reality. The rest of the things are all in duality. Our efforts in duality are the other six. Jai
Or
Baba.
instructions or way to deal with in the duality is the rest. Interesting.
Yes, yes.
Good point. Yeah. Whereas this is pure, yeah. Okay. So there's so much to learn and infer and get from this. It's mind blowing. Yeah. So did we? No, we didn't do Infinity of the Truth. We did Search for God. Right. Yeah. We did Search for God. Was that the last chapter we did?
Yes.
Search for God, we have to start, I think. Or we did.
No, I think we finished that. We finished it.
Finished, okay.
We finished it.
Yeah, we finished it. Yes, we finished Search for God. And we start with stages of the path. Any comments on the last chapter? Any insights? It's a small, nice little chapter. Okay, so we will continue reading then. Physical book, page 128, Stages of the Path. Avatar Meher Baba ki jai. Bondage adds to value of freedom. Requesting everybody to mute their mics. Thank you. Bondage adds to value of freedom. All persons have to pass through the state of bondage, but this period of bondage is not to be looked upon as a meaningless episode in the evolution of life. One has to experience being caged if one is to appreciate freedom. If in the entire span of life, if in the entire span of its life, a fish has not come out of the water even once, it has no chance of appreciating the value of water. From its birth till its death, it has lived only in water, and it is not in a position to understand what water really means to its being. But if it is taken out of water even for a moment, it longs for water and becomes qualified by that experience to appreciate the importance of water. In the same way, if life were constantly freed and manifested no bondage, man would miss the real significance of freedom. To experience spiritual bondage and no intense desire to be free from it are both a preparation for the full enjoyment of the freedom that is to come. Path begins with longing for deeper reality. As the fish that is taken out of the water longs to go back in the water, the aspirant who has perceived the goal longs to be united with God. In fact, the longing to go back to the source is present in each being from the time it is separated from the source by the wheel of ignorance. But the being is unconscious of the longing till it, as an aspirant, enters the spiritual path. One can, in a sense, become accustomed to ignorance just as a person in a train may get accustomed to the darkness of a tunnel when the train has been passing through it for some time. Even then, there is a definite discomfort and a vague and undefinable sense of restlessness owing to the feeling that something is missing. This something is apprehended from the very beginning as being of tremendous significance. In the stages of dense ignorance, this something is often inadvertently identified with the variegated things of this mundane world. When one's experience of this world is sufficiently mature, however, the repeated disillusionments in life set one on the right track to discover what is missing. From that moment, the individual seeks a reality that is deeper than changing forms. This moment might aptly be described as the first initiation of the aspirant. From the moment of initiation into the path, the longing to unite with the source from which he has been separated becomes articulate and intense. Just as the person in the tunnel longs for life all the more intensely after he sees a streak of light coming from the other end, the person who has had a glimpse of the goal longs to hasten toward it with all the speed he can command. Okay. Veil of manifold imagination. On the spiritual path, there are 6 stations, the seventh station being the terminus or the goal. Each intermediate station is in its own way a kind of imaginative anticipation of the goal. The veil that separates man from God consists of false imagination, and this veil has many folds. Before entering the path, the person is shrouded in this veil of manifold imagination, with the result that he cannot even entertain the thought of being other than a separate, enclosed, finite individual. The ego consciousness has crystallized out of the working of the manifold false imagination. And the conscious longing for union with God is the first shaking of the entire structure of the ego, which has been built during the period of the false working of imagination. Traversing the spiritual path consists in undoing the results of the false working of imagination or dropping several folds of the veil, which has created a sense of unassailable separateness and irredeemable isolation. Thus far, the person had clung firmly to the idea of his separate existence and secured it behind the formidable walls of thick ignorance. But from now on, he enters into some kind of communication with the larger reality. The more he communes with reality, guys. Okay, you're connected, right? Okay. I heard a beep, so that. Can someone confirm you're able to hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, thanks. Sorry. Yeah. All right. Perfect. Thanks. No, I heard a beep and my Teams just froze, so I just want to make sure. I'll continue from the beginning of this paragraph. So sorry about that. Traversing the spiritual path consists in undoing the results of the false working of imagination or dropping several folds of the veil, which has created a sense of unassailable separateness and irredeemable isolation. Thus far, the person had clung firmly to the idea of his separate existence and secured it behind the formidable walls of thick ignorance. But from now on, he enters into some kind of communication with the larger reality. The more he communes with reality, the thinner becomes the veil of ignorance. With the gradual wearing out of the separateness and egoism, he gains an increasing sense of merging in the larger reality.
Yeah, Karthik, on this paragraph, Baba has given, go to the beginning of the paragraph. Very, very important. It says the unassailable separateness, actually. That is a very important, it's near impossible to remove that separateness. And then the next word he has used is irredeemable isolation. That's also equally important. And then there is a but he also says from now on he enters into some kind of communication with the larger reality. So there is still a way, and there is one ray of light that is coming at the end of the tunnel. Even if that is there, then one can progress, though it is very, very difficult. So he has given a difficulty of the task or the target, the path, but also given assurance that it is possible. I liked it very much. Jai Baba.
Correct. I'm sure all of us relate to what is being talked about here. In our own personal journeys as well. The first time you enter the tunnel, you associate it with the wrong things. Then you finally see the light at the end of it, and then that's that. I hope everybody's able to relate to that in their personal journeys as well. Yeah. So continue. Any other thoughts or questions?
So Karthik, there's one question is that how do we confirm that, or how do you get to know some signs or indications that you are in communication? And I think dreams is one of them. And otherwise, if we could share some experiences either now or later, but how do we get to know or confirm that we are in communication?
I think it is very individualistic, sir, actually. So one just get a good feeling and a tear in his eye, remembering him, or in a situation. But and somebody may get a dream, or somebody may meet an agent of Baba who does something which is very surprising. So it's very individualistic, and I think Baba gives that experience depending on where we are on the path. So I'll take it like that.
Fair point.
Perfect. it is easy to get misled or excited by somebody else's experience. Second, we are prone to also recognize wrong things as events that we link back to Baba, and that's where I think our sanskaric load and our smartness and our vivek comes in, right? Our ability to discriminate. But I think the real signals are very, very clear, right? So again, I'm speaking from personal experience, and for those of you on this call, I'm sure all of you have had those personal experiences where there's no room for doubt. But then in the early days, there's always room for doubt. And the key point, like Sanjay said, is do not try to look for something that somebody else has gone through. Make chart your own course, figure your own signal, right? That's what I would say, right?
Yeah, fair point.
Yeah.
One more point on the other side, what I can add is gradually over a period of time, we get to understand the falsity of some of the things for which we are getting attached to. So are attached for
Yes.
over a lifetime. So
Yes.
gradually
Yes.
we understand bit by bit something that it is not a permanent thing. It has to be given up and all that. This realization is also a path towards reality. Hey, Baba.
Absolutely. Beautiful,
To
Mamaji.
use
Nicely put. Yeah.
beautiful. To use Baba's favorite word in discourse, one of the key words, false values, right? So we associate false values, and then we gradually disassociate them, and then
Yes,
that's
yes.
that's the process. Yeah. So in fact, I wanted to add one word. So let me quickly do that. Today's word to be added to.
Loosening of the grip kind of a thing. Yeah.
No, I wanted to add the word poise.
No,
I don't
no,
know how we missed
I'm
that
not
till
your
now.
words, but yeah. So what Mamaji was saying was yes, that's the
Loosening,
realization that
yes.
you are. Yeah.
Correct. Okay, so let's continue. The subtitle is Gradual Reversing of False Working of Imagination. The building up of a sense of separateness is a result of flights of imagination. Therefore, the breaking through of the self created sense of separateness and being united with reality is secured through reversing the false working of imagination. The act of getting rid of imagination altogether may be compared with the act of awakening from deep sleep. The different stages in the process of ridding oneself of false imagination might be compared with the dreams that often serve as a bridge between deep sleep and full wakefulness. The process of getting rid of the manifold working of false imagination is gradual and has 7 stages. The shedding of one fold of the veil of imagination is decidedly an advance toward light and truth, but it does not amount to becoming one with reality. It merely means renouncing the more false imagination in favor of the less false imagination. There are different degrees of falseness of imagination corresponding to the degrees of the sense of separateness constituted by ego consciousness. Each stage in the process of ridding oneself of false imagination is a definite wearing out of the ego. But all intermediate stages on the path until final realization of the goal consist in leaving one flight of imagination for another. They do not amount to cessation of imagination. This is again a important point he's making. Intermediate stages on the path. Yes, Sanjay. Okay. Intermediate stages on the path are creations of imagination. These flights of imagination do not bring about any real change in the true being of the self as it is. What changes is not the self, but its idea of what it is. Suppose in a daydream or fantasy, you imagine yourself to be in China while your body is actually in India. When the fantasy comes to an end, you realize that your body is actually not in China, but in India. From the subjective point of view, this is like returning from China to India. In the same way, gradual non identification with the body and progressive identification with the oversoul is comparable to the actual traversing of the path, though, in fact, the different intermediate stages on the path are all equally creations of the play of imagination. Pseudo sense of realization. The six ascending stages are thus all within the domain of imagination. However, at each stage, breaking down the sense of separateness and discovering a merging in the larger reality are both so strong and clear that the person often has a pseudo sense of realization. Just as when a person climbing a mountain comes upon a deep valley and is so fascinated by the sight of it that he forgets the real goal and believes for a time that he has arrived at his goal. The aspirant also mistakes the intermediate stages for the goal itself. But a person who's really in earnest about climbing the mountain realizes after a while that the valley has to be crossed, and the aspirant also realizes sooner or later that the intermediate stage has to be transcended. The pseudo sense of realization that comes at the intermediate stages is like an individual dreaming that he has awakened from sleep, although he is actually still asleep. After becoming awake, he realizes that his first feeling of awakening was really a dream. Planes and states. Each definite stage of advancement represents a state of consciousness, and advancement from one state of consciousness to another proceeds side by crossing the inner planes. Thus, six intermediate planes and their states of consciousness have to be experienced before reaching the seventh plane, which is the end of the journey and where there is final realization of the God state. A plane is comparable to a railway station where a train halts for some time, and the state of consciousness is comparable to the movements of the passenger after getting down at the station. Nature of Samadhi. After entering a new plane of consciousness, a person usually takes some time before he can freely function on that plane. As there is a radical change in the total conditions of mental life, the person experiences a sort of paralysis of mental activity known as samadhi. When the pilgrim enters a new plane, he merges into the plane before he can experience the state characteristic of that plane. Just as a pilgrim who's tired by the strain of a journey sometimes goes to sleep, consciousness, which has made the effort of ascending to a new plane, goes through a period of lowered mental activity comparable to sleep. However, samadhi is fundamentally different from sleep. A person is totally unconscious in sleep, whereas in samadhi, he is conscious of bliss or light or power, although he is unconscious of his body and surroundings. After a period of comparative stillness, the mind begins to function on the new plane and experiences a state of consciousness that is utterly different from the state it has left behind. Okay, I have two questions here. I'm not sure I can create a market distinction between planes and states. And second, more than a question, it's a confirmation of understanding. So the word samadhi in this context is used for a state that is reached in literally in every plane as you make the journey through the planes. Those are the 2 points. So anybody wants to help me out here?
Plane is a sort of a movement from one place to the other, whereas stage is that place which you have reached. So his example of a train moving, that is, we are passing through the plains. So and then the station is the actual place you have reached, which is new. So you are in Bangalore, you are moving, and then when you reach Tumkur, the station, it is totally different from Bangalore. And when the train halts there, you have a different experience in the station. That is the state. So when you have come from plane 1 to plane 2 or things like that, you have a different experience, different imagination. You experience all new things, and then either you start enjoying there, that is once again as we are doing now, keeping in duality, or you understand that it is not real and then keep moving further. That's how I understand this. So I think state and plane are slightly understood. Hey Baba.
I agree. Thank you. In fact, this is the what you just said is clearly
Yes.
articulated in this line. I missed it. So basically, it's the movements of the passenger after getting down at a station. So if you use the analogy of the train and the journey, so station is the plane, and the state is nothing but minor things that represent that plane, which are representative of the experiences of that plane.
Yeah.
So
Yes,
So,
on a very simpler note, if you're on a long train journey, if you pass to northern India, you are served something else, and if you are pass to Maharashtra, you get vada pav. When you go deep south, you are served dosa. So that's the difference. So,
Yes, that's very good.
yeah.
Quite graphic. So the cultural difference, the
Yes.
way people talk, the language they
The
use,
language, yes,
the
everything.
gestures they do, all those things may be
Everything
different.
changes. Yeah.
Yes. So we may experience
nice
all these
analogy.
things as we go through the plains. Because we are stuck in the grass till now, we don't understand the probabilities that we may see later. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba, I think that I think one of the best ways to understand the aspect of status, state, stage, or aspect, in God Speaks, page 278, that great table, there you have status, let's say status of Majzub, Brahmi Booth. The state is Nirvikalpa Samadhi. The stage is Vijnan or super consciousness. And that gnosis or divine knowledge is I am God. So if we use that as a reference, like again, if you have the status of Paramahamsa, then the state is Nirvikalpa Samadhi alternating with or without consciousness of Tribhuvan, which is God consciousness alternating with creation consciousness. Then the stage or aspect is Turiya Avastha or reaching the divine junction. Then the gnosis, which is the divine knowledge, is I am God alternating with or without, everything is with me, which is Shivoham alternating with or without Jivoham. And then coming to your question of planes, see, there are these words called worlds, spheres, planes. So I think in the context of God Speaks, you have to understand that the subtle sphere has 4 planes. Of course, the first and fourth are, overlapping. The first one is overlapping with the gross world, and the fourth plane is overlapping with the mental world or the mental sphere. So sphere is what is used for that particular, the three spheres which Baba talks about: gross sphere, subtle sphere, and mental sphere. Within the sphere, there are worlds. So, in our context, in the gross sphere, the Earth is basically a world. Okay, there are many worlds within the universe in the Milky Way galaxy. So, the gross sphere includes one of the worlds, which is Earth. And we know there are other planets, other Earths, and all that. When you look at planes, then you're looking at second plane, third plane, fourth plane of the subtle sphere. So that's how I believe we need to interpret the planes, the world spheres, and so on. Okay, well,
I think that's a good point. I'm just reminded that it's also crying out for some graphics, some visualization of that, right? So how
Yeah.
all three of them are there, and then how they interact. Maybe that's a thought exercise and some brainstorming subsequently be a good idea.
Yes.
So on the samadhi point, any inputs, Kama? So it's that the reference here is contextual to every state, not to be misunderstood with Nigrical. So
I think it's samadhi is like a trance state, you can call it.
that's it. Yeah.
Yeah. So in each plane, actually, if you read the meaning of fana and baka, that ultimate, fana phila is nirvikalpa samadhi, which is called the real fana. And you can see the real baka is baka bila, which is abiding in creation consciousness as well as God consciousness. So in fana baka, same thing, it's a kind of a samadhi where you are in a trance, the mass are caught in different planes. So that is a kind of a samadhi, you can say, So there is connotation here when you read that the table page 278. You have like Majzub and Saliks. Okay, so the Paramahamsa state is Majzub Salik or Salik Majzub. So when you are in the Majzub state, what used to happen, like Ramakrishna Paramahamsa used to go in the God consciousness trance state. And then when he comes down to creation consciousness, that is called Salik. So there are many permutation combination of this Majzub Salik, the trance for God realized beings. But within human beings who are in the planes of involution, depending on which plane you are, you have that particular kind of samadhi or trance. I think that's what I believe. Thanks. Jai Baba.
Cool. Thank you.
Uh, just as an idea of sight. So we had a kindergarten experience or explanation from us, and then graduate experience from Kama right now. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we do all our kindergarten discussion, and then the PhD comes and says, yeah, great. Okay, let's continue. Next subtitle: each stage on path, a curtailment of ego life. When the aspirant enters a new plane, he is merged into it, and along with the slowing down of mental activity, he experiences a substantial diminution in the ego life. This curtailment of the ego life is different from the final annihilation of the ego, which takes place at the seventh plane. But like the final annihilation at the seventh plane, the different stages of the curtailment of the ego at the intermediate six planes deserve special mention owing to their relative importance. In the Sufi spiritual tradition, the final annihilation of the ego is described as fana phila, and the earlier samadhi of the six planes of duality have also been recognized as kinds of fana, since they also involve a partial annihilation of the ego. The first three fanas. Through all these fanas of ascending order, there is a continuity of progression towards the final fana pilla, and each has some special characteristic. When the pilgrim arrives at the first plane, he experiences his first fana, or minor annihilation of the ego. The pilgrim is temporarily lost to his limited individuality and experiences bliss. Many pilgrims, thus merged, think that they have realized God and hence get stuck in the first plane. If the pilgrim keeps himself free from self-delusion or comes to realize that his attainment is really a transitional phase in his journey, he advances further on the spiritual path and arrives at the second plane. The merging into the second plane is called fana e batili, or the annihilation of the false. The pilgrim is now absorbed in bliss and infinite light. Some think that they have attained the goal and get stranded in the second plane, but others who keep themselves free from self-delusion march onward and enter the third plane. The merging into the third plane is called fana e zahiri, or the annihilation of the apparent. Hence, the pilgrim loses all consciousness of his body and his world for days and experiences infinite power. Since he has no consciousness of the world, he has no occasion for the expression of this power. This is Videha Samadhi, or the state of divine coma. Consciousness is now completely withdrawn from the entire world. Dangers of the fourth plane, our favorite topic. If the pilgrim advances still further, he arrives at the fourth plane. The merging into the fourth plane is called fana e malakuti, or the annihilation leading towards freedom. The pilgrim experiences a peculiar state of consciousness at the fourth plane, since he now not only feels infinite power, but also has plenty of occasion for the expression of that power. Further, he not only has occasion for the use of his powers, but has a definite inclination to express them. If he falls prey to this temptation, he goes on expressing these powers and gets caught up in the alluring possibilities of the fourth plane. For this reason, the fourth plane is one of the most difficult and dangerous to cross. The pilgrim is never spiritually safe, and his reversion is always possible until he has successfully crossed the fourth plane and arrived at the fifth.
Can somebody explain the fourth plane a little better?
You want the PhD version or you want the kindergarten version? Just kidding.
Both will do. Because in the context, no, in the context of like what we have read, that there at any point of time there are 7,000 souls in this world at different stages, right? The people who are in this fourth stage, I mean, do they really actually experience that they have this power to do miracles? And who are these people and what kind of state they are? Can I have a little more in-depth analysis on that?
Yeah, anybody?
Jay Baba, I guess from my understanding that as we know earlier from Baba's messages and teachings, that the best way to go through the planes of involution is to go veiled. Okay, this is number one. It is for people who want to experience. This is again Maya, because in the big picture, in the macro aspect, top-down picture, we know that evolution of consciousness is false illusion. Involution of consciousness from first plane to sixth plane is real illusion. So just like Baba said, good sanskaras, just like Baba said, good sanskaras create golden chains, and bad sanskaras create iron chains. Both involution of consciousness and evolution are in the domain of duality. So when when you're going through these planes, one example is the mus who get stuck and they are not able to go beyond. That is where the guidance of a perfect master comes. Now, in the fourth plane, different people based on their sanskaras, prarabdha sanskaras, if they have already have started their involution process, go through each stage, depending on each soul's consciousness and depending on whether they are affiliated with a Sadguru or an avatar. So, according to your question, the 7,000 people in the spiritual hierarchy between the first and the seventh plane. In the fourth plane, there are 56 people, according to the God Speaks supplement. The fourth, fifth, and sixth plane have 56 individuals in the 7,000 who are in those planes. And I believe that we have seen in real life people who have so-called powers and have misused it. There are so-called spiritual, the spiritual marketplace, which we see in India and all over the world. People who claim they are self-realized and they can take you to God realization or self-realization. So this is a perfect example of, somebody, as it said in the discourses, what we are reading, that you could get stuck in any plane and believe that you have become God realized. So I think it's a very subjective thing. It all depends on the individual soul, how they are able to tackle Maya when they are in each plane, and also the guidance and the grace of a perfect master also helps. So, according to God Speaks, in the fourth plane, if we use your powers to good cause, you can transition straight to the sixth plane. But if you don't use your powers and wait, and then you transition to the fifth plane with the guidance of a perfect master. So that's my understanding, Jai Baba.
Thank you.
Kama, can we have some examples of those who are in different planes and got stuck or got perished because of unwanted activities?
Exactly. And another point, you said that in the planes of involution, you're veiled. So if you're veiled, then how is somebody in the fourth plane aware that he or she has those kind of powers? If the veil is still
Veiled is one of the options. Yeah, go ahead, Kama.
I don't think that if somebody's in the fourth plane, see, like I said, you have the option of using your power or not. Okay. But if you know that these powers are also part of the illusion, unless you're going to use the power for good purposes, because siddhis are given to an individual soul for the purpose of doing good, spiritually speaking, not for material reasons. What happens is some of these people who have, for example, if I'm not mistaken, if you read the Wayfarers, I think Must Muhammad, before he became affiliated with Baba, he had the ability to kind of tell you which horse would win. So people in Bombay used to kind of, use his powers, and he was not aware of it. Okay, he was doing it unconsciously. So people used to come and make use of his powers. So I think that the individual who is on different planes and who have certain powers have to diligently use those powers only for spiritual reasons. If they start using for material reasons, then you are going to start creating sanskaras and you can get stuck and so on and so forth. So I think we have seen within India, all those so-called Babas, there are people, I'm not going to, for example, let me be very straightforward. I think, for example, Satya Sai Baba, okay, the Afro guy, okay. Now, there are people who have been benefited by him, okay, no doubt about it. He also claimed that he's the incarnation of Shirdi Sai Baba. Now, that is blind faith. Now, we know from the literature of God Speaks, Baba said, after the Sadgurus drop their body, they never come back in human form. It is only people like us, ordinary human beings with prarabdha sanskaras, who have to go through the involution process. We take rebirth. So there itself, you have an issue now. Now, what Baba also mentioned about him, I think Baba was aware of him because he became quite popular at a very young age. He just said that he's a tantric. He just had certain tantric powers. Okay. And that's what, you can use Maya to fool people. And then, people have to get hurt. I know many examples of followers of Satya Sai Baba in Almora, where I used to live, Americans, who became mentally disturbed. And I believe in Bangalore, I've heard that there is a psychiatrist who is actually now getting a lot of patients who have been Satya Sai Baba followers. So there are examples like that. We don't know which particular person is in which plane and how they use their power. So that's a very subjective thing.
Thank you,
Yeah, I
Kama.
have only
But
one.
I'll ask.
Sure, go ahead.
Can I just
Come
a
on.
question? Yeah, sorry. So
Sure,
you
sure.
said about Muhammad must could tell you which horse would win in a race. So what about the clairvoyants? They can also tell you that maybe. What is the difference between a clairvoyant and
Frankly, I'm not an expert. I only try to read Baba's books and I try to interpret to practical realities. So my domain knowledge of clairvoyance and all those other, see, different people have different powers. There are people who can heal, people who have cancer, like, we have heard in Brazil, all kinds of ailments that are not being resolved by allopathic medicine. There are people who have these special powers, who are able to heal these people. So those are people probably in one of those 7,000 who have that ability. So clairvoyance, I think those are all, yes, siddhis. I don't know what plane they are in or whether they come in that or they are just tantric powers. Jai Baba.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and I think Baba has also made reference to, I think it's a very, very important thing to bring out here. He has made it very clear that do not go and pursue or be enamored by the occult, right? So obviously some of these things could be occult, tantric, whatever. And what we saw in the case of specific Muhammad Mast and his horses, we know through Baba that it was not just a tantric skill or a occult skill. It was basically a siddhi that he attained because of his spiritual progress, right? So I think it's not in our capacity, or at least in mine, to be able to determine what is occult and what is a siddhi, which is coming through a spiritual progress. I think that's a distinction we better bring out now. I have one more question for Kama, and after that you can respond, Mama. Well, you said 56 across 5, 6, and 7th plane, but isn't 56 those that have got to the 7th plane? Minor distinction, but it's eating my brains.
No, good question, Jai Baba. It's page number 256. Mayor Baba distributes the 7,000 members of the functioning hierarchy for a particular age in and between the 7 spiritual planes as follows. So in that, if you see in the table, page number 256, in the first plane and also between first and second, between second and third, between third and fourth, between fourth and fifth, between fifth and sixth, and between sixth and seventh, there are 5,600.
Yes.
So if you take specifically second plane, it's 666. Third plane is 558. Then fourth, fifth, sixth is 56. In the 7th plane, there are 3 Majzubs and 5 perfect masters. Actually, the 56 we are talking about, 56 minus 8. Okay, so that is 48 people are different from the 7,000. So in the seventh plane, which there are 3 majzoobs and 5 perfect masters, actually come from a separate 56, the God realized souls, the actual God realized souls. So that is the number you have to be cognizant about. So technically there are 7,000 plus if you add the avatar, it's 7,001 and then 48 God realized beings because the other 8 are included in the seventh plane, 3 majzoobs and 5 perfect masters in the 7,000. It's a little tricky to, you have to read between the lines. It's on page number 2.
I will read this, but so you're saying it's 7,000 plus
48
46.
plus 48.
46 plus 3. Yeah. Okay.
56 minus 8 because, okay, so if you take the 56 God realized souls as per page number 278, the Majzoobs, Paramahamsa, Jivan Muktas and Sadgurus, out of that 56, 3 Majzoobs and 5 perfect masters are taken into the 7,000, are included in the 7,000, basically.
Correct.
7th plane perfect masters. And one more thing I want to add is in chart 5 in God Speaks, where it's called the journey, each of the planes, there is a designation given, which we have heard in our day-to-day life, from childhood. First to second plane comes under the category of yogi or sadhak. The third plane comes under the name of Mahatma. The fourth plane is called Mahayogi. The fifth plane is called Mahapurush or Sant or Wali. And sixth plane is called Satpurush or Pir in Sufi terms. So sometimes you hear these words, depending on where that particular saint or that person is in the planes of involution, This is page number 130, 131. So the chart 5. So this is just to categorize, what we are just reading about the different fanas, the different planes, Fanai, Batli, and all this stuff. But we have these Sanskrit Vedantic terms for, designations where each of these different beings who are in the process of involution, what we call as the 7,000. Yeah, Mama.
Thanks, Kama. That helps. Yeah, Mamaji.
I have one new idea, but idea which is in my mind for a long time now. These different planes and the words associated with planes is this the one which is explained in many of our Puranic stories of a lot of different capable persons showing all different activities. One example that I can give is Vishwamitra, who had lot of powers, but he could not go beyond that. So he was playing within that power. Like that, there are a lot of stories, all our Puranas, Devatas and all these people and their worlds. Is it the depiction of these different planes? So that is a thing in my mind. Anyone who can
I think in Ramayana
that.
also, yes, Mamaji, in Ramayana also, when Rama was traveling across the jungles, he liberated several souls who were cased in stone, or some such stories are there, though I'm not able to recall exact words. So these are the ones maybe who were stuck into some planes like fourth plane, not able to progress.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Especially Vishwamitra's story sticks in my mind because he had such a lot of power and he could create a world of its own, but he could not go beyond that.
Yeah.
So he that shows that they are stuck up to some level, something like that. So
Yes.
I put these things there and then see them, whether it is a sort of a reflection or any literature is there which tries to juxtapose these things and try to explain. So whether Kama has any experience or ideas on this?
Is it true that Vishwamitra was in Samadhi for 1600 years?
This time scale is a thing to be taken in a different perspective, not in our time scale.
Okay.
Dr. Mama, what was your question again? Sorry.
No, what we study in the Hindu Puranas, majority of the stories of, say, these Gandharvas, their fighting,
Yes.
and
I got
then
it. Yes. Correct.
Vishwamitra, and all
Yes.
those things, do they
That's
project in these planes?
probably because once you are self-realized, you're not going to dabble in all this antics. For example, Vishwamitra wanted to get that Kamadhenu cow, right, from Vasishta or something like that. Then you also have the example of Ravana, who was a big devotee of Shiva, and he wanted powers. You also know that there was one asura or somebody who meditated and gained a lot of powers, Hiranyakashipu or something. I don't know, one of
Yes,
those.
yes. There are a lot
So
of
yes,
all the
correct,
Puranic stories, I think,
correct.
delve in this different planes. That's
Because
so
Baba,
because they are not in the grass, but they are
yes,
not all totally realized. So they are all in between.
even the archangels and all that in the spirit world are in different planes, but they are not God realized. Baba said ultimately every drop soul has to take human form to either get liberation or nirvikalpa samadhi. That is the divine game. So let's try to be very cognizant of the fact that this is again the greatest detective story ever told. The avatar or so-called God in human form is playing through us. We are playing the different parts, for him to recognize his own infinity or divinity. So we are all basically part of this whole cosmic dance or cosmic love game, as Baba says, where we are all actors and we have to fulfill our destiny, whatever it is. But the end goal is very clear for all of us that it is liberation or samsara from the cycle of births and deaths. Or if you want to go higher, you can get Nirvikalpa Samadhi and gain Satchitananda state. Jai Baba.
Any other
MOM.
inputs from others?
No, I agree with you. It's highly likely that those references are references to the planes. But I have not come across anything which confirms that or throws more color on that from Baba literature. At least I have not come across. Maybe if others have come across, we should talk about it.
Okay, thank you.
All right, let's go back.
Just a little more, but I just wanted to bring one more perspective, and that is that in the My Wish, the sixth part of the My Wish, he says that there's another path, and that is that when whomsoever takes my name at the end of reading his last comes to me. So that is also one more part. So I mean, that's of course another track or another path. One is going through the plains, other is that a trip or a fast track, if you could call it.
Yes, yes. As Kama usually put it, that we need to go through the plains totally veiled. So this is one way of the final veil, love of Baba, that takes you to the pinnacle, direct.
No, that's supposed to be Najad Mukti, isn't it? Where it's different from.
It is in the path itself at one stage.
Okay. Thank you.
What is that word, Soma? I have not come across that. It's an interesting. What mukti?
Najad Mukti. In Cyrus's book reading, he often refers to it as Najad Mukti. So you get
NAJAD.
I guess,
Mukti.
yeah, because
Okay.
when you take Baba's name at the last moment when you're leaving the body, then you get this kind of a mukti, which is not like the other planes or this, what we have just spoken about. It's not that kind of
Interesting.
a mukti.
No, it is one in the plane itself. I think Kama should be able to tell us. So he actually what is this? Vishishtadvaita says that you reach God on death if you say follow Narayana. So if you take the name of Narayana while you are dying, you reach him. So that is mukti. So that is one stage in the path. It is not total realization, but it is merging with God, the end of the journey there itself. So I think Kama will be able to explain that. What is that stage?
Jai Baba, what I think Doc Mama is trying to say is that, basically, see, as Baba said in God Speaks, the real goal is Nirvikalpa Samadhi, Sachitananda, but as goal, the common goal for everybody, which uh, which is the divine theme, that every soul will get liberation, at least in the 84 lakh life. Okay. Why we are doing this exercise of understanding God and Baba and the avatars and all the planes is, I call it reverse musical chairs. Who can get out first? Can we reduce the number of cycles instead of going through 84 lakhs? Can we do it in 84, 840, 8,400, and so on and so forth? So, according to the literature, most souls will get liberation. Few souls which are destined will go to the second state of fana, which is called fana phila or nirvikalpa samadhi, and some souls who have nirvikalpa samadhi will be part of the 56 God realized souls who will live on earth as God in human form, or sorry, man God, technically speaking, and they will help humanity directly or indirectly, depending on the status or function they have. So, in the supplement to God Speaks, the mukti you have, as Karthik has given the acronym MOM, minimum ordinary mukti, which is called moksha. So, moksha is MOM, minimum ordinary mukti, happens after the human body is dropped. That is when the person goes through physical death. And this is something I'm still trying to grasp. Baba says in My Wish, also in everything, in other literature, that try to take my name at the end of your journey. Like when you're dropping a body, if you take the divine name and you focus your attention on God or your Ishta Devata or Guru, then you come to me. Now, that is a very subtle statement. Does it mean that you get united with him and you get liberation, or you're going to be entwined with him for the rest of your cycles of reincarnation? If you have to come back again and dissolve your sanskaras, you'll be always connected with your guru or avatar or sadguru or whatever that is. So ordinary mukti happens to God-fearing people. That's what is mentioned here. Uh, like people who do rituals, they follow the book, they are very pious, those kind of people who are really sincere will probably get liberation. Um, the the equivalent to ordinary mukti is nirvana. Nirvana happens before you drop your body, which means you're dissolved your sanskaras. Your sanskaras have become zero, and you are experiencing that state one, the most original, beyond state of God, where there is only bliss. So the common denominator for ordinary mukti, which is after death, and nirvana before death, is both souls will experience bliss, ananda. Only those souls who have finished with nirvana go to the, after 3 or 4 days, they say you will get nirvikalpa samadhi. And when you get nirvikalpa samadhi, you experience that Satchitananda state, infinite power, infinite knowledge, infinite bliss. And then you have all the other things like Sahaja Samadhi, that all depends on the kind of function you're doing and all that. That's on page 278, the table. So the essence is all souls will attain fana, first stage of fana, which is liberation or nirvana, and will have bliss, depending on how they lead their human life, dissolving sanskaras or spending sanskaras, unwinding sanskaras and spending sanskaras. And within that subset, you have all these other categories, nirvana and nirvikalpa samadhi and so on. Jai Baba.
Thank you. We are not in Samadhi. We can move ahead.
Oops, I was in virtual samadhi because I was on mute. So I was going on and on. Thank you, Kama, for that exposition. I'll repeat what I said. So I'm also I'm also very intrigued by that the concept of Baba's name on your lips, right? And this is not something that's unique to Baba. Many masters say that you should have the name of God on your lips on the last breath. Now. It's still not clear, as I said. Is that a shortcut? Is that a way to do something? That's one of the ways. But then one of the things that I have been coming to think about is that concept exists because you bring more of God into your life. You cannot get God as the thought on your lips when you're breathing your last if you have not done that every waking moment. So it's a process, and I think that's what we are trying to get to. That's my thought, my personal opinion. I may be wrong.
Baba has also said that unless you start remembering me from now on, how will you remember me and your last moments?
Exactly. So
Yeah.
I think it's more an aspirational thing and more a process thing that we should inculcate. It's a behavioral change, not even behavioral. It's a internalization that we have to do to get better at this.
Jai Baba. Since Baba has had so many avatars, would it matter which name we say towards the end?
I would say just a very small thing, and that is all are one.
Huh?
All are one. There's only one.
So towards the end, if mistakenly you, instead of say Baba, you say Allah, will you get demerit points? Put him back
I
in
thought
the
as an
pot.
account. I thought as an accountant he with abundant caution he would have said let's take the latest avatar's name. But I agree with Ashok. It can be any name. It can even be oils. So if the thought is oils when you're breathing your last, I think you're done.
But if you say oils and God hasn't heard of that acronym, you're doomed. You don't want to risk it at the final stage.
Don't worry, God can reach you, your inner depths. You should have His grace.
Yeah, I have his. I hope you have to. Yeah, Baba, I'm kidding.
That also you have to be blessed with, right? You can die on a ventilator, you can die in a coma, you can die in an accident where you don't have time to take his name. I think that also has to be destined for you to take his
No,
name
but
at
if
the
it is
last
part
moment.
of your DNA, if you kind of have him with you all the time, it's like breathing in and breathing out. So he will not get out of your system unless, my father towards the end, I would always tell him, Daddy, you have prayed so much. Why don't you say God's name? He says, my bodily pain is not allowing me to. Then I would recite with him and he would repeat. And it wouldn't happen to him automatically. But perhaps, people who are unable to do so, the onus is on the family to kind of let them go with Lord's name, either heard or spoken. That's through my experience, my recent experience. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba.
That's
Okay,
a
so
good
we
insight.
crossed
That's a good insight. And what I have heard from different people, maybe knowledgeable people, is that taking the name of God in any form you are used to, that is the essence to be done at the end. It need not be either Rama or Krishna or Allah or Baba. It is depending on the individual's choice.
Yeah.
Jai Baba.
I also have this mental dilemma. I will, sorry,
yeah.
I say Om Baba, because half my life I knew Om is the real deal. Now I'm thinking I'm moving here, kahin wo na chhoot jaye. So I'm always saying Om Baba. And when my brother-in-law was praying for my father-in-law, when Daddy passed away 2 weeks ago, I heard him also saying Om Baba. Then I thought I should put it in public, कि भाई ये
Yes.
यही dilemma है कि सबको भी होता है.
Yes.
I think it is just not about the name, it's what comes from your heart. It's just that I have been praying Rama all my life, and the last day I start saying Allah. It's only a verbal thing, just using a word or Jesus, But is my heart connected? So I think it's just not possible at the last moment you just connect to somebody new and then start taking his name, just in the interest that I'll get this, liberation. That's a motive behind that, I think it is out of love that you remember in your dying moment that gives you that help push, I suppose. Yeah, Baba.
Yeah, I think I
Can I share just a
So
thought? I would
what?
like to have some PhD. Sorry, please go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So
You
I
have to
would
repeat
just
anyway
like to
because you.
share a thought and get some
Sure.
PhD explanation on it. So now the soul has no form, right? Soul is formless. So they say if you take Krishna's name, you see Krishna. You take Rama's name, you take Rama. So basically, it's the same soul. So if you take Baba's name, probably we see the soul in the form of Baba, or if you say Krishna's name, we see Baba in the form of Krishna. Is that right? Just a thought. As soul is formless.
Yes, as long as we are in duality, we need a form to concentrate. So to that extent, it helps. So we have to transcend this and then become formless. You should be able to go to the level of formless identification of God or our soul and our own soul dissolving in that. So but in duality, as long as we are in the grass, we always need a form. Otherwise, it is difficult for us to associate. So name and form are required to that extent. If you have transcended beyond this name and form, you need not have that. Jai Baba.
So actually, just to address this, there can be either a formless aspect of the Almighty or a form, and but I mean, both are the same. Ultimately, both are same.
Yep, Nirguna or
Thank you.
Saguna.
Yeah, Nirguna, Saguna. Yes, Nirguna, Nirakar, and
So it's, I mean, to use a corporate example, I think it's what you brand it, right? So what you're used to and what you get comfortable, the concept is more important than the name and the form that you give to it. So over time, maybe it'll become Jai Oils. I don't know. At this time, it doesn't sound right, but maybe it will sound right someday, or it will sound right for some people. So it's all what the, as Sanjay said and some others said as well, the thought behind it and the conceptual clarity in your head is more important than what you actually utter. Verbalization is minor, major and important is the thought and concept. Yeah.
so,
Anyway,
Karthik, if I may just
yeah.
add, Sanjay has raised a valid, very important point that it has to come from your heart. It has to come from the body.
Yes.
And so your direct connect would be from the heart, neither the body or the mind, but from the heart.
That's why
Yes.
this is after form, the sound is supposed to be taken as more ethereal compared to the grass. So in the sound, the Om is supposed to be taken as the primordial sound. And also in Om, there are 3 consonants or parts. And they say there is a 4th part, which is the silent, the last part. And that is the important. So as you gradually move from form to sound to Om, and then you can pierce through and then find the differences in the Om itself, and then come to the final end, that is silence. That is what Baba has told. Silence is the end, existence. That's how we have to gravitate from cross to the end. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba, listening to all of you, the thing is that when we look at God, Paramatma, there are 2 aspects. The personal form of God, which are all the avatars and the Sadgurus. So Baba was the same. Zoroaster, Rama, Krishna, Buddha, Jesus is the same drop soul who was the first drop soul to become God realized through the eternal avataric infinite consciousness. So as Nomita was saying, you can think of Muhammad or you can think of Buddha or whatever. Of course, the motivation or intention behind it, the sincerity behind it is what matters. Number 1. Number 2 is that's the personal form of God which each one of us can relate to. That is why we have all these different operating systems: Christianity, Buddhism, Islam, and so on and so forth. And India, we have Hinduism, so-called Hinduism, as crores of gods. On the other hand, the who comes first? Does the personal form of God comes first or the impersonal form of God? Now, the impersonal form of God, we understand, is the first reality. Doc Mama said, the existence. And there also the existence, the one and only God, is the self in every finite self, which is the ego personality self, basically the false I self. So this self, which is formless, is basically that state to be, eternal avataric infinite consciousness, the Nirguna Nirakar aspect of God, is the first form. Because only after that, avatar, that is God in human form, came, the second aspect. So I think the conundrum out here is, the quandary with spiritual aspirants is, do I focus on the personal form of God or the impersonal form of God? That again depends on each person's sadhana, spiritual and material sadhana. So I think as a human being, when we wake up, we identify with the form. So I think it makes sense to relate to a form. It's an avatar or a perfect master, not some tantric guy, then you'll have a problem. So I believe from my own, I've been, trying to figure out for myself, is it only Baba that I should focus on? Should I go behind? What is behind Baba? What is behind Baba is the formless self. And that self is within us, which is the oils, our innermost loving self. So I thought the best way to kind of make a balance or adjustment is to also focus on the personal form of God, and also simultaneously become cognizant of the fact that our formless self, that personal form of God, is the manifestation of the formless self, which is within each one of us. So if you are able to become aware of both aspects, the personal form of God as well as the impersonal form of God, which is the self, then I think we are moving forward. Jai Baba.
Yes.
Very, very well. Baba, yes. Baba used to say, I'm not this body so often. So what you're saying makes that connect to that statement. Yeah. Jai Baba.
Perfect. Perfect. Okay. So let's go from the 4th station to the 5th one.
Jai Baba.
Shall we?
As you know, I do these morning and evening prayers, and I read Baba's prayers. So those words sometimes don't mean in terms of words very much to me, but while I'm reciting them, I'm in a trance-like state. And over this period, while I look at Baba's photo, I always do recognize him within me and address this prayer to the picture and the spark within me. I haven't thought it through. It's slowly happening this way. Yeah, Jai Baba. That's all.
So
Yeah, I
next time,
think we
just
should
see
move
this
forward.
board. Yeah. Next time
Yeah, we
you
should
see
move
the
forward.
board on the station, whether it's fourth or fifth, maybe, or just look out for the board.
If you need favors, I'm not on the fourth plane. I don't want to
Okay, I don't need favors. I don't need favors. I'm telling to help you look for a milestone.
Baba is the milestone.
All right, let's get back to
Yeah.
fifth and sixth planes.
Yeah.
Panas of the fifth and the
Let's
sixth
start
planes.
reading. Yeah, we are stuck at 4. Yeah.
Yeah, let's not regress. The merging into the fifth plane is called Fana e Jabruti, or the annihilation of all desires. Here, the incessant activity of the lower intellect comes to a standstill. The pilgrim does not think in the ordinary way, and yet he is indirectly a source of many inspiring thoughts. He sees, but not with the physical eyes. Mind speaks with the mind, and there is neither worry nor doubt. He is now spiritually safe and beyond the possibility of a downfall. And yet, many a pilgrim on this exalted plane finds it difficult to resist the delusion that he has attained godhood. In his self delusion, he thinks and says, I am God, and believes himself to have arrived at the end of the spiritual path. But if he moves on, he perceives his mistake and advances to the sixth plane. The merging into the sixth plane is called Fana e Mahabubi, or the annihilation of the self in the beloved. Now the pilgrim sees God as directly and as clearly as an ordinary person sees the different things of this world. This continual perception and enjoyment of God does not suffer a break even for an instant. Yet the wayfarer does not become one with God, the infinite. Fana Phila, or Nirvikalpa, the state of conscious Godhood. If the pilgrim ascends to the seventh plane, he experiences the last merging, which is called Fana Phila, or the annihilation of the self in God. Through this merging, the pilgrim loses his separate existence and becomes permanently united with God. He is now one with God and experiences himself as being none other than God. This seventh plane, Panafila, is the terminus of the spiritual path, the goal of all search and endeavor. It is the Nirvikalpa state which is characteristic of conscious Godhood. It is the only real awakening. The pilgrim has now reached the opposite shore of the vast ocean of imagination, and he realizes that this last truth is the only truth, and that all the other stages on the path are entirely illusory. He has arrived at the final destination. Avatar Meher Baba ki jai. So that's fifth.
I have one question.
Finally, seventh. Yeah, go ahead.
So, is it that when you reach the seventh plane, you have pierced the veil? This thought has been lingering in my mind with the pyramid which I had, conceptualized for my own understanding. But I'm saying that, see, when you're up to from the first to the sixth plane, your intensity, or let's say even the degree of your sanskaras gets eliminated, or not eliminated, minimized. But when you are on the seventh plane, have you pierced all? Is it a situation where you have pierced all veil and reached into
Yeah.
a definitive state? I mean, just need a
Yeah.
confirmation.
All the curtains are withdrawn. Yeah. The veils are gone. Yeah.
Okay.
See, Jai Baba, what the question was about, see, once you are in the fifth and sixth plane, you have crossed the border of danger zone, the fourth plane, right? Baba has said it very clearly that fifth and sixth plane, there is no regression. You won't go back. The difference between, see, it's been very difficult for me even to figure out the fifth and sixth plane, what happens. But whatever I could gather, even in God Speaks in the supplement, there is an explanation of the different planes, as well as in the main part of the book in God Speaks. And of course, here, discourses, because it was dictated earlier, there is no talk of nirvana at the seventh stage. He just speaks directly about phanafila, nirvikalpa samadhi. Nirvana is spoken much more in detail in God Speaks, which was dictated later, as you know, in the 50s. So the fifth plane and the sixth plane, saints, basically, you see God in both planes, but in the fifth plane, you are alternating between seeing God as well as dealing with the nitty-gritties of society, your day-to-day life. Whereas in the sixth plane, you are seeing God all the time. Okay, that is very clear. Sixth plane is much more explained better than the fifth plane from my reading. So in both aspects, you are able to experience God. But of course, the difference between fifth and sixth plane, we know, is both are mental sphere. It has to do with the mental body, the mind, but it has two domains. The fifth plane deals with the domain of the mind dealing with thoughts.
Thoughts.
Sixth plane deals with the domain of the mind dealing with feelings.
Feelings.
So you can look at it from a pure bhakti yoga point of view, where you have the highest bhakti, because you're seeing, feeling all the time, 100% that intuitive heart feeling that you have in the sixth plane for God, because you're seeing Him 24/7. Whereas in the fifth plane, you are kind of in the analytical process also, because that is the domain of the thinking mind, whereas the sixth is the domain of the feeling mind. So this is the difference. And of course, the sanskaras become finer and finer. In fact, the analogy is that you going back to the stone state. In fact, because stones don't have gross the kind of sanskara. They have sanskaras, but of different kind. Very rudimentary. The who am I? So, so you can say the plant kingdom and rock kingdom, mineral kingdom are equivalent to the fifth and sixth plane. Just an analogy, okay? So the sixth plane, the issue is definitely where the subject aspirant, even though he is able to see God everywhere, he's not united with Him, because there is the duality of subject and object. So there is actually only one impression that is keeping him from going to the seventh plane, which is union. And that can only happen with the grace of the Guru, basically. So sanskaras become zero. So you can say technically there is only one sanskara left in the sixth plane, which is the duality of the subject and of the object, in the sixth plane. Jai Baba. Cool.
Cool.
So, yeah, I think
Great.
with that, it was a great session. I agree.
Yes,
And let's continue tomorrow. Yeah.
yes, it was a
Can I
session
ask a
of
question?
real journey of the different planes. What we had learned 2-3 different times is gelling into some sort of a clear structure. And one new aspect, what Kama told at the end was, we are going back to the stone stage. That's an eye opener. So we accumulate so much over the evolution, and from the grosses to the finest, we remove the veils, and we remove the last veil, and then see God in front. Then with the blessings we merge later. Jai Baba.
Okay.
Jai
Perfect.
Baba.
Jai Baba, everybody. Have a great
I think somebody had a
Saturday.
question. I think like there was somebody who had a question.
Yeah, I wanted to I wanted to just ask a
Oh,
question,
sorry.
unrelated maybe. So, in Hinduism, we have hundreds of gods and demigods whom we worship. You know, the Kuldevtas, etc. Which plane are they from? They are from the seventh plane, or is it another plane altogether?
As I alluded to earlier, they are in different planes. And based on that, there are a lot of different stories which create the basis for all the Puranas, I think. That's how I look at it. They are in different planes, not in any particular plane. Each one, as they describe the characteristics or the powers they have, they are in different planes.
Yeah,
Jai Baba, I
but
think that when
we
you are-
also
Sorry, go ahead, Sanjay.
yeah we also in Hinduism is also we pray a river, we pray a mountain, we pray trees. You know, even animals are prayed. So yes, so even that is there in that thousands and lakhs of gods that Hinduism has,
Yeah.
which is not, I think, is not nothing to do with the planes. Yeah,
Okay, nature, praying nature. Okay.
nature. Yeah.
Jai Baba, when you look at the gods and goddesses, if you look at Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva, or if you look at their, their partners, so you have Lakshmi, goddess of wealth. You have Saraswati, goddess of learning. Now, if you try to interpolate that or extrapolate that based on our material and spiritual life, I remember during Dashera, Saraswati Puja, I had to get all the books and keep it in front of the deity and then pray for, good knowledge, right? Saraswati, goddess of learning. Now, here, what is the goal? The intention is, hey, you know what? I got to do well. I got to get the highest degrees. And it has to do with your material life. We are not really talking about spiritual knowledge. Like your parents are not saying, hey, you know what? It's all about God realization. This is why we have taken birth. So I think all these different gods and goddesses basically are kind of symbolic. They are very symbolic. I'll give you one example in Kriya Yoga, which I did. And I read this book, Purana Purush of Lahari Mahasaya. It was his diary of 25 diaries of his practice. Now, in the Kriya Yoga, Bhagavad Gita is actually, there is an interpretation from the Kriya Yoga aspect, which is the 7 chakras within the body, okay? Because this is about the subtle body, which is about energy. And chakras are all about energy and the 72,000 meridians and so on and so forth. In fact, each of the chakras, from the bottom to the top, signifies each plane, technically,
Yes,
Kundalini,
yes,
That is one
yes.
of the things that happens when you were talking about siddhis and miracles. How do you know? I think the best example is which chakra of a person is awakened, the Kundalini. That is why Baba said, like, don't get into all this, like, because it's a waste of time. Waste of time. It's a distraction from the real journey, right? So I think gods, goddesses, they are just symbolic representations. So coming back to Kriya Yoga, this was what I learned from this book was about the Kumbh Mela. The Kumbh Mela actually personifies the Ganges is your spinal cord, and all the different chakra points on your spinal cord represent the immersion points of the Ganges. Haridwar, Allahabad, Ganga Sagar, and all that. Each of those are immersion points. So these are all metaphorical, an analogy for, and the 7 Pandavas, the 5 Pandavas basically represent the chakras, earth, water, fire, Arjuna was fire, Navi chakra, and air is Bhima, and then the throat chakra is Yudhishthira. And Pandavas represented material detachment, and Kauravas represent material attachment. So the whole idea of the Kriya Yoga practice, when you're doing this inhalation, internal breathing pranayama, is to balance, this material attachment and material detachment through this internal processes. So all of the pujas, all these things are metaphorical and analogy, an analogy for the inner work that we need to do. So these external aspects, this mythology was to actually help us to work on our inner being. And one more thing I wanted to tell you was there was a story which he said was Krishna, Lord had many gopis, okay, and the gopis wanted to give Krishna a gift, you know. Now Krishna is God, okay, he has everything. So the question was, what is it that they can give, you know? And the only thing that Lord Krishna, what doesn't he have? He doesn't have a mind. So the gopis gave their mind to him. I thought that was a beautiful representation of Manonash, you know, that you just give your mind, the provisional working in you. Jai Baba.
I just want to add one more thing. This last thing is that for those who want to get a little more insight, part 2 of Listen Humanity, chapter 6, Ways to the Path and its states and stages, is similar to what we have read, but it can also clarify if you have any doubts, or it's a little anecdotal. It's as Kama has said, it's an extension of the discourses. It's extension of the discourses. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba.
Awesome. So
Awesome in the sense that the essence of Hinduism is not taught, only the rituals are taught. That is the problem. So we have to reorient, relook, and try to explain things to the youngsters. What is there in a story is the moral and not the story itself. Thank you. Jai Baba.
Yeah, and
Jai
yeah,
Baba. That's
yeah,
true of
sure,
all.
absolutely.
Jai Baba.
Yes, Karthik,
Jai
something.
True of all religions.
Go ahead.
No. I think I totally agree with you. So it's not just Hinduism; it's all religions,
Yeah,
organized
yes.
religions go through that progressive degeneration where they get lost. Yeah. Anyway, with that, on that high note, let's sign off for the day and catch up tomorrow. Have a great Saturday, everybody. And you're missing Ravi and Sherry. I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah. Sherry had a bereavement last weekend. Another one lost to the virus tragedy. So, but anyway, I hope she'll be back soon. Take care, everybody. Have a great one.
Jai Baba.
Jai Baba. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba, everyone.